Today, we're talking about our technology partners. So we will talk a little bit about the tools of our trade, i.e. the software, right? But really this episode is about thinking beyond just the tools. How do we partner with the makers of those tools? What are some of the questions that we as firm owners should ask ourselves, our team, and the builders of these products as we combine our firm services with their solutions to help serve clients, right? So tech partners today here on Drink While You Think, the happy hour conversation between a couple of guys building their firm in really weird ways. I'm your host, Kenji, with my trusty co-host there, Matthew. Matthew, who is our sponsor today?
Today's sponsor of Drink While You Think is Inflammo. Inflammo, the CFO's doorway to talent. Dude, you got a sponsor that competes with us? God dang. I can't take you anywhere, man. Inflammo. Talk to Drew and team over if you're in Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, Inflammo. No, seriously, if you guys get stuck on an M&A issue, stuff like that, the Inflammo folks are great. But I can't believe Kenji is getting sponsorships that compete with us again. But I do like that he sent me the Gerst Amber Ale. Drew, you're the man. Appreciate you. If you're in Nashville, check out the Yazoo Brewing Company. Awesome. What are you drinking, dude?
To be fair, well, I'm drinking, this is a Homestyle from the Bearded Iris. This is a popular Nashville brewery. In fact, I know a couple of our team members at Acuity love it. I think both T-Mac does. One new team member, Steve Burt. I'll give Steve a shout out. Steve's a fan. He's from Nashville, one of our new controllers, and he's a fan of the Bearded Iris, amongst others. So Drew and team at Inflammo, thank you for the beer and my trusty Acuity Yeti pint glass. Cheers, man.
I just met Steve today. So Steve, it's good to meet you today. So you'll be hearing this in a couple of weeks. So, but you'll be I remember that day.
Right.
So I didn't know we were drinking Nashville beers today, or I would have told you earlier, Drew. Not Drew.
Nashville
Steve.
beers.
I met Steve today, not Drew today.
Steve,
sorry.
Drew. Well, I'll say again, thanks for actually Drew and Inflammo did not even want to really be a sponsor, but I said, too bad if you come and visit and you bring me beer, which Drew very generously does, you're automatically a sponsor. That's just how it works. Those are the rules. This is how it works.
This is not the rules. Kenji just said Drew gets a sponsorship, and I respect that. So
respect that. Anyway,
that's not the rule, but you guys can send us beer and see if you make it on the podcast if you're a competitor of ours. So.
That's okay.
So what are you talking?
Tech partners.
Okay.
And so I've got it framed up with a couple of different questions. And the thing we want to save another episode, one that we've kind of got in the works for a while, around our specific tech stack, which I think people would find interesting. I think of other firms always interested in other people's tech stacks. That's would be a good one when we have Patty on here, right? Let's have Patty on here and do that one. So we may mention some of our tech stack, but I think what I wanted to kind of dig into more was just tech partners in general, like working with tech partners. And so I kind of came up with a group of, I think, kind of questions that sometimes we at Acuity go through when we think about our tech partners and things we ask ourselves about. Okay, not just should we use the tool, but should we kind of go a level deeper and kind of partner with them? So I've got a few questions. I'm going to get your kind of take on some of these as we kind of kick them around. But there's a lot of things I think we have to think about when working with these makers of all these software tools, because damn, dude, there's a ton of them out there. Like, there's like a ton of these tools and partners out there. So it's a little tough to sift through. But I mean, I had to start with this one. At the top of the stack, you got to go with, when you're thinking of questions to really dig in with these tech partners with, it's got to be around the problem solution fit, right? What problem is this tech trying to solve? And I'd say, I think if this is fair or not, we at Acuity think of two issues. Usually it's either an employee or team issue or a client issue that we're trying to solve, right? I mean, I'd say some of the solutions address both, but some of them are purely just for our own team. Like, are we clear on like what exactly are we trying to solve? We kicked this around a little bit at our retreat this week.
Well, I mean, there's like, I'll use an example. Bill.com is an example of this. It fixes an employee issue. It's not, we're not trying to solve for bill pay. Like, there's lots of bill pay solutions. What they solve for us is not giving our employees access to authorize payments for our clients' bank accounts.
Yeah.
At its core, that was the problem they fixed that other bill pay solutions hadn't fixed when we picked Bill.com, right?
Right. Exactly right.
So that's
We're
what you're
talking about a
thinking?
segregation of duties issue there, right? That we
Yeah, that
want
was
for
a
our firms.
total,
Yep.
from a firm owner's perspective, we were picking the best bill pay solution from a payments perspective. Although they did check those boxes. What we were solving for was access and segregation of duties.
Access issues, right? That was luckily it does a good job of paying bills, right? I think in our world there, the bigger one we were solving for that one was an employee issue, like a team internal issue.
That
right?
was team internal issue.
Totally.
That-
In other cases, you get into somewhere, it's more of a client issue. Like you're right. You're trying to figure out, this is something that's painful for them. Like this is a painful thing for the client that they're going to have to do otherwise, or something kind of manually if we don't interject or put a piece of tech in place. A lot of examples of those.
ChartMogul. I remember when you were
Yeah.
doing cohort analysis, ChartMogul was a great example of that.
Yeah.
Like you could spreadsheet jockey that to death, but you were like, I remember you and David Moeller were both ChartMogul geeks. Like you guys were doing cohort analysis and when people churned and stuff like that for both of the businesses.
It was a great example. Again, when a client comes and tells you, hey, I look at this particular tool more than I look at my financials every day. And so looking at that, saying, oh, wow, this really shows some interesting SaaS metrics like MRR and LTV and churn rates on a regular basis. That was definitely solving a client need, right? Having reporting like that. And so finding ways to help our SaaS clients see the value of tools like that were really interesting. And then you certainly get into, once you kind of figured out, and I say that, it seems obvious, well, of course it's solving a problem. Well, I will say when there's this many solutions and you're walking around at Engage or QuickBooks Connect, these things are coming at you all over the place. And you do have to actually stop and say, wait a minute, time out. Do we actually have that problem? Is it big enough for us to actually spend time on? Because there are some things like, oh, wow, these folks over here have like a cool booth or great swag, or, they're handing you drinks or they seem nice. That's fine. But like, do we have a need for that? Surprisingly not. I've been guilty of that a million times where I come back and I'm like, oh, we got to check this out. And you're going, wait a minute. The scope of the problem we have is not large enough to really warrant driving down a path with this. So it does happen.
Do you remember which conference we were like, we really identified this problem for the first time? It was Accountex. And the old Accountex used to have this chart with all these quadrants with hundreds of, like, it started out with tens of solutions in each quadrant. And there was already like, how many quadrants were there? There were like 30 quadrants with minimum 10 solutions in each quadrant. And we were like, oh my God. Like, how's any entrepreneur supposed to navigate this ever?
I mean, we couldn't navigate. It was absolutely abysmal. And so, yeah, that was a great one coming up from Accountex. And we'd look at that one on a regular basis saying, we're just trying to cut through the noise for ourselves and clients by figuring out where do we actually have problems that need to be solved? So that's a one to ask. I mean, you certainly have to kind of think about, it's a competitive landscape. So how does the software stack up competitively? How well does it solve the problem? I mean, so certainly once you figure out that you're in a quadrant of whether it's access, bill pay, whether it's, some form of financial charting or reporting, you need to take a look at what else is out there in the ecosystem, which is difficult because there's a lot popping up all the time. And I think at the point you're making a decision, I mean, sometimes I feel like you have to live with that partner for a little bit. You got to jump on with them a little bit. And you can't just keep flipping and switching. It's going to drive them crazy. It's going to drive you and your team crazy. So, I mean, it's a little obvious, but you got to get that problem like, okay, this really does solve a problem that exists today for your firm and for your clients. And I think I think it's the best one currently of all the competitive ones out there. But pretty quickly, I think once you get through that, I think we typically go to, there's some economic questions you got to start asking, right? You're going to get into, and it's probably related, how's the thing priced? What's it cost to use a firm and a client to use? And is there any margin opportunity? Right? Is there some financial incentive for you as a firm to use it? And what's the thing cost? I mean, there's some things you have to ask yourself as a firm of like, are you going to embed it in your pricing? Are you going to Are you going to direct bill? Like we've been a bit of both. And so sometimes we end up kind of passing along. Are you going to mark it up? How's that going to work? And so I think you have to get into the economic side of it a bit. Is there anything you'd say when you think about the economics of these different tools that you look at that helps you make a decision on these?
Well, I mean, we've just screwed stuff up. Like we went through the productization exercise, right? And we used to like include technology in our like different products, right? As a bundled solution.
Yeah.
But then we were screwed when our like price increase cycle was different than our partners increase cycle. We would lose margin. So ultimately we've gone kind of back and forth with this, and kind of currently where we've landed is we have the technology solutions primarily listed as separate products.
Right.
So when they increase prices, we increase prices, and we had to put that in our terms of services, but we got burned by that a couple of times.
Oh yeah.
Because Intuit and Build.com and Expensify and all these guys that we had been charging people for, those were the primary those were the primary four we charge people for, when their price increase cycles don't coincide with each other and don't coincide with ours. So that was kind of like a logistical problem we kind of learned over time. I remember messing that one up pretty good.
Yeah. So. And I think we started from a place of wanting to make it simple for a client, right? We always went with like, let's go with the most elegant, simple solution. If you can have someone buy one price point that includes everything. So we kind of went from a space we thought, I don't think that's necessarily wrong to try to keep it simple for the buyer, but we were not prepared for the fact that when you have that many tech partners and their prices all start moving at independent times, it's a huge administrative burden on you as a firm to keep track of all those price increases, to pass them through. There's just prices moving constantly. It's kind of feels like that moving dartboard you're trying to hit. And when you don't hit it, which you're not typically, it's just you lose margin. You're losing money on that.
Yeah. And for context for people, like if you're really up market, this doesn't really bother you. But for context, like some of these costs that we're bundling were like 30 to 33% of the total cost of the product that we're offering. So say in a $150 a month product, it was $50 in the case of bill pay. So if that price goes up, like that's like you already don't have much margin on right. that. So you got to just really watch it. So this is a different size problem depending where you're playing in the market. So if you're trying to do like MVP, low cost, highly efficient transaction stuff, it almost needs to be split out. As you go up market and if you have a $50 a month product on a client that's billing $2,000 a month, like maybe you don't care, right? Yeah. Maybe you can pick that back up on the annual like increase cycle, but on a $150 product that was $50 of it was technology and $100 was service, and they raise their price 20%, that could kill your whole margin.
Yeah.
So yeah. I do want to give that context because people are like, who cares about $50? Well, if it's $150 a month, you care.
You care. If that's just part of your total package. I mean, you have to, I would say if you go that route of bundling, you kind of need to think about yourself in terms of being a VAR or reseller, right? You really have to be on top and have some controls around the cost moving around and everything from also too, when clients come and go and leave, like you have it on the back end as well. Like, oh, we forgot to stop the licenses that we're still getting paid for, but that client's already churned or gone somewhere else. So there's a lot of things there that can eat up margin quickly if you don't do it that way. There's other programs out there that can be more attractive when you're getting referral fees, right? Almost like affiliate. Think of it that way, or some method where you're just passing, it's coming through you. You either helped introduce in some way. I see it two ways. You're getting a fee back and forth directly from the tech partner I think of two things. For two things you're getting compensated for. One, you get compensated for maybe you generate a lead, right? Let's say somebody heard about Gusto payroll through us, used our sign-up link. Great. We pick up a nice referral fee from Gusto. Also, the second thing I think you're getting compensated for there in that model is you're playing a role of ongoing service. I'm sorry, you're essentially kind of acting as, I think, tier one support. I always think of it like where in an ideal state, I think most of the tech partners don't have to staff as many support people when they have a partner program with accountants, because us accountants serve actually as a level of support. So it's it's not only fair, it should be required that they should pay us something for that. If we're doing that, we're helping them keep costs lower on customer acquisition costs on the sales team and on the support team. But it's nice when they make it. I typically prefer like those referral fee programs like some have, to where we just track all that. They cut you a direct deposit once a month based on the mechanics of it, make it very nice and easy, versus having us to go and mark things up. Like here we'll give you the wholesale price as an accountant, and you have to kind of pass it through, is the way that we typically like to look at it. But you have to ask those questions to yourself, because some of those are easier to administer internally for your team than others. And ask some questions about how if you want to bundle, if you want to separate those prices of the product out separately. It's just something to think about, because tech partners in the same space will do that in different ways, for sure.
For sure.
All right. After kind of, the problem solution questions, the economic questions, if all those are starting to line up, I think you start getting into some of the team questions. That's where my head goes. Like, okay, great. This is looking like this probably solves a problem. We can pencil the math on this. What does rolling this out to our team look like? And I think of it in a couple of ways. We've got, for us, this may not be everybody, but for us and everyone else would have, how does your accounting team, like what's the training look like, right? Is there a way how do we get them up? And this is going to be pretty easy to pick up, or is going to be a heavy burden on them? And then also, I think sales and marketing teams need to understand this too. How are we going to sell this thing? What does it look like sitting on your webpage? What does it look like if your sales team's trying to describe it as part of an offering? You kind of need to think about it in both those ways. I don't know, when you've looked at that before, like how do you, like you kind of starting to dig into the next level, like great, it's a good solution, it's a good price point, but like, how are you going to support our team?
Yeah, I mean, there's two really separate things there. From the team perspective, one of the things I think we've leaned on is certification programs, because there's a big difference if we're going to have to develop the training, and I know we have to develop some like edge case stuff and a little bit like use case stuff and responsive 5-minute, 10-minute, this is how you do stuff. But if they have a certification program, that's a really big lift for our bookkeeping team in particular, right? So all the cloud accountants that we have tend to be like coming and experienced. And the big thing we're doing is doing tech training. So if you're a big technology partner of us and you have a certification program to keep people up on every year, like recertifications and certifications and the new stuff that comes out, like you're taking the burden off us. So they're being good partners to us with those certification programs. So I think those are the two big things on the employee training piece. The other piece you're talking about with sales, I was just talking about this with our latest tech partner. So they were like, how do you look at tech partnerships? And I was like, I have come to think of it in 3 big buckets, right? So the first bucket, like the entry level bucket for us, I mean, there's other things too. There's like going to conferences and exploring shit and stuff like that we do all the time. But really, when I really thought down, like people get real, category 1 is our clients are using it and we have to deal with it.
Yep.
Right. So this was Ramp that I was talking to that helped me crystallize this, because I was trying to like, how do I explain to Ramp like how Acuity works? I was like, okay, first of all, there's like this category of people that like our clients are just using it all the time, because that's what Ramp did, right? Like our clients are just like pounding us with it. They're like, oh gosh, this is the greatest things in sliced bread, especially in the tech practice, right? So then the second one is, oh, they've reached a level that we've decided they meet all the security concerns. They check the box on pricing. We check the box on team. They're going to give us customer support. They're going to do some other stuff. And kind of, we're going to try to co-market with them. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. We're going to advocate for them. So that's the set I call the ones that are on our website. So we have a partner page on our website. It's about 18, 19 companies. Like that's kind of level 2, right? For us. And then the third level is like, we've thought about them so much that we've built our products around them. And our sales team understands them, our product so that's kind of like the 3 stages they go through. So I think of like partnerships in little different ways, like you're getting like client driven demand. Then we say, okay, you've checked all the boxes, and we're trying to get exposure to our team and our sales things. and then like we exactly know how to take you to market.
Right. Right.
And that's kind of like the 3 tiers that you get in, even if they're unofficial tiers, like
Yeah.
that I think people go through here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a good way to kind of describe it to, I think, to a tech partner coming in, where there are some of these that are more fully flushed out in a deeper partnership, just because we've had time to kind of go through those levels, and our sales and marketing team are all spun up on exactly how, the solutions work with ours. They're selling it effectively there. We're doing some co-marketing, we're really deep with them. So things happen. Versus there are some who are like, okay, we're just teaching the team how to be aware of some of these tools that are being brought in by clients. There's different levels of that, I think, for sure. But it's important to make sure your team gets spun up on this. I think the certifications are a great one. I know that I was impressed with the way that, in fact, the Gusto more recently was putting out Gusto Academy and really putting a lot into their certifications and training. Like, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, I think, for us. If you can demonstrate that to firms, they're going to take that partnership much more seriously. But okay, so let's say we get through that piece of it. You've got the team's okay with it, the economics work, got a good solution. This one's maybe less obvious. I think there's some questions about that sometimes we as firm owners forget to ask back, is that's, what does the partner need from us, right? What do they need? And I think that's especially, and I say that because what do our partners need that we can fulfill as accountants, as firm owners? And I'm a big believer of just mutual respect. Is I really try to make sure within Acuity that we don't use the word vendors. I try to hammer that home. You and I both do that, Matthew, of like, we just talked about, call them partners. We talked about this at AcuityCon when our partners are invited. They're invited to every single session, right? They're not held off in just the vendor trade show booth area, right? They're invited into everything. And that's important for us, because I say that mutual respect is that I don't particularly enjoy when our clients call us vendors. Yes, they pay us for something. I'd like it to be more of a partnership. So I think we try to do that with our partners too. And I think when we're being good partners, which I'm sure there's plenty of times we're not, we're asking, like, what is it specifically that you need help with? Like, what do you need? And I don't know your take on this, but sometimes they just like, listen, Acuity, we need to help move more licenses. At the end of the day, you are helping as part of our sales org, right? You're helping as part of that. Just tell us, we'll help. Or maybe there's some, other areas that we can assist with. How do you think about that? Like, I like it when they give us clarity on what they need from us. Like, this partnership will be successful if these things are met. Would have been some good situations where you've seen that.
well, I mean, that's really dependent on stage for a lot of the companies, right? So like the really early stuff, say like Tally4 or Callbox, Verity, like when we were getting Giraffe too, those 4, when like we were introduced to them, they're like early. Like they're all at different stages now, but like that was really, really early. So we could actually help with product stuff. And like from a two-way perspective, like one of the things they asked us to give back was like, hey, give us feedback and stuff like that. And the ones that were really intentional about it, like the Giraffe guys were really some of the most intentional, right? They would plan product sessions. They would really solicit our feedback. They would distill it and go back and do that. And in return, like that created a lot of engagement with us, right? So they got what they wanted back because they got a lot of engagement. And from our perspective, it was like we were invested in them. Like we cared, like we started caring more because they were asking us, and then they were doing stuff that we would be like, oh, that is help. What, like they a month later came back, and that's in the product. So that was like that stage one. I see that a lot. Like I really feel that, and I get really invested in those companies personally. Like I love the founding team. I hate when the founding team leaves. I hate when like all that kind of stuff. Like I know, kind of invested. From there on, I think that's one of the ways I've seen that it's really interesting, and I really like it as two-way. The second one is just making sure we have, like, they know how we work, right? So I'm working on that a little bit. One of my goals this year is to kind of take those 3 tiers that I came up with for Ramp, because that really helped Ramp understand like how we worked. It kind of doing almost like a partner program, like explanation for people, like here's how we work. Like here's what we expect, here's like that kind of stuff, and just be more transparent with people about how we can help and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, on the bigger ones, obviously, like you and I both, I mean, between us, we sit on half a dozen, it feels like, of the technology partners advisory boards and stuff like that. And that, and some of that is just not like you and I do more kind of telling people how like accountants work
Right.
than really advising on the product. Usually we have to get somebody on the team to say like, oh, here are the product features and stuff like that. But when you're talking to Intuit, or I'm at Bill.com, or you're at I'm at Zero, you're at Expensify, you're at Gusto, like, I mean, those are all big companies, right?
Yeah.
So like half the time there, like the input I think that they appreciate most from you and I, like, and this depends on where you are, like,
Right.
you can either do product feedback, or you can do like, I think they like a lot of ecosystem feedback.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is the general sense for your product. This is kind of the stuff that, this is the problem I'm going through. When you hit me with this and you're like, sell license, sell license, sell license, I'm like, dude, I'm trying to train people right now. Like,
Right.
talk to me about your certification program. Don't talk to me about selling license. Like,
Yeah.
I've got the great resignation happening. You know what I mean? Like, you're tone deaf. Like,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff I think is really interesting. I don't know, man. What do you think?
I think you nailed it. I think it's an area that I think is helpful. I give two thoughts here. One, let me piggyback that a little bit and just say that I do get a lot of people ask me, because we sit on a lot of advisory boards or councils or summits, whatever people want to call it, and they ask about that, or maybe they're going on one for the first time. We have some of our team members going on them, and the counsel I give to them is to make sure they start building relationships with those partners, and don't try to be something that you're not. Like, just be like, hey, here's the role I play at my firm. Here's what I do, and I have really good purview of. Lean into that. You will find those, especially the big partners, they will find someone who goes, oh, I know a team or people working on a solution that you'd be great for. Sometimes it's easy to walk in and go, well, you must know everything. Well, none of us know everything, right? In fact, like you just said, you and I are terrible on some of the specific product stuff. We have a pretty good handle on the ecosystem and what's happening in the space and how a firm manages things like this. So lean into that. Don't be afraid to tell the partner you're working with, like, here's what I'm actually really good at. Here's what my firm counts on me for. And I think they can find ways to engage with you better that way. Also, I like it when partners are really direct about, hey, here's what we're trying to get out of this, and here's what we need. And I'll give a good example. I think someone who's very direct, who's probably one of my closer friends in the tech partner space, I think Joel Lacayo. I love Joel. We don't, we do some work with Rippling, but Joel is always very clear about what they're trying to accomplish. He's trying to accomplish what he needs. And and he does it in a fun, loving, friendly way, right? But it's like, hey, here's what we're looking for. Here's what a partner means to us. And I appreciate that transparency. Sometimes I think people are afraid to kind of say what it is they're looking to do, right? And so
Joel's never been afraid of anything.
Never afraid of anything.
Say to us, thank God.
We love you, Joel.
So
we love you, Joel. But I think that's important, right? Giving them a chance to ask them what they need. What do you need? What would you truly need out of our organization? And I think being very direct is great. Saying, okay, cool. Well, I either can or can't fulfill that. I had that conversation with another great friend in the face, Twyla, at FreshBooks. And when she and I talked about this, and she wanted some help on some things, I worried about, do I have enough product experience? I don't with that. I've used FreshBooks before. I actually used to use it for my wife's company when I was doing bookkeeping for her. But it's been a long time. And she's like, we don't need you for that, Kenji. Kenji, we don't need you for your experience on FreshBooks, 10 years ago. We need you for something different for that. So have that conversation, I think, with the partner about what they need as well, too. And it'll just create a more balanced and better partnership. I'd say kind of like, and maybe encapsulate like all this, like, great, all those things get met, you move forward, and then you're in the partnership with these folks. Like you're living in the partnership. So I think of it now, you're in the relationship. With relationships, you're going forward, you're in it. What does it look like? And I think this is where something like support starts coming in. Now, I would say you probably should have some conversations about what does support look like for a partner. But you're going to experience it once you're already together working with them, right? You're there, something goes sideways, because guess what? Something always goes sideways. Or there's just a new feature or something pops up. What does support look like? That's probably the tier one of like, what's the relationship look like? And you need to know, are you going to be put in the support queue with everybody else? Is there a special place for partners? Is there a point system that allows you through there? Because, or do you actually have names and phone numbers of people that you can talk to at your partnership? I think that's really important. Like, that's really important to have. Would you, I mean, I assume you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good to understand that. I mean, I think that's kind of like one of our gates for getting to like that second tier, right? Is like we've got to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody. Like like for you to make this list, right? Yeah. That's like, not to give Joel shit, but like that's kind of like, I bet that's probably why Rippling hasn't kind of tiered over with us. Like they're kind of in this third tier. Like our customers are starting to use it a lot, right?
Yeah.
But like we don't have direct customer support. We don't have that. Like we're not doing co-marketing yet. Like it's just kind of, I know it's been around a while and we have great relationships, but like we don't have dedicated support. Like until we get that, like it's hard to push you on other people if we don't have dedicated support at our size. I feel like,
Yeah.
because we have so much
Absolutely.
centralized, and like I know Joel answer our calls, but like we need somebody on the CS team to like be answering all the ops managers calls and all the team lead calls and all that kind of stuff, you know?
And what I would say on that one, that's a fair point from them to say, hey, well, guess what, you guys haven't referred any people to Rippling in like ever. So guess what? I can't dedicate support team to you. And that's a fair thing to, and all that is
Oh, for
transparency.
sure.
That's like
It's
a fair thing.
100% fair.
So it's
But
everyone know, right?
yeah, it's just hard because so many of their clients are on our thing now. Like we have like, we're getting to where we have that 10 client threshold where it starts becoming painful. Like when we don't have that CS, you know?
And that'll be a good spot for us to kind of get to with them. I think I had a good experience just this week. I mean, I can't call out all of our good partners because there's so many good, honestly, there's so many good ones, but Expensify this week, another firm owner was having a tough time and couldn't get an answer. And for me, it was nice. I was quick ping over to Ryan Donato over at Expensify. I was like, yeah, plug me into that person. Let me help him out. Right. Another fellow firm owner.
Yeah.
And so it matters being part of these partner programs because I get it. Like we're the same way. Like we can't have a hugely elaborate.
It's not just being part of it though. Like you've got to be active in it to get the value.
Yep.
You've got to participate. You've got to come at it the right lens too. You've got to be like, I think the biggest mistake I see other firm owners make is expecting like once you have 50% of your clients over there, like that they're going to drop everything for you. Like you do have to have a context. Like how many clients does Gusto have? Kenji, do you remember the number? It's something stupid. It's like 60,000 or so. Like I can't even fathom the number.
Yeah.
So like we're a platinum partner, which is their highest tier partner with 150 clients on Gusto. And 150 on 60,000 is not like direct line to the CEO. Like be reasonable, people.
Yep.
100%. And I just think people get out of whack, like with expectations, like, hey, I'm an important client. Well, you're like kind of like they don't really have a Walmart problem here, folks.
Yeah.
Like we're so like our accounting ecosystem is so like fragmented.
If you're serving the small business market like most of us all are, there almost is no concentration risk. There's no
they don't have any concentration risk with us, and they're trying to do the best they can. So like have a lens and be reasonable partners. That's where it comes to two ways, right?
When we look absolutely. At it comes like, to that in a huge way about being two ways of just understanding that and respecting it. I think to me, that's a tell to me. If someone doesn't think of it in two ways, they talk about these as their vendors. They treat tech partners like their vendors because it's the exact same thing when our clients treat us like vendors and they don't care about our team. They don't care about who we are. They don't partner with us. It's the exact same thing. And that's frustrating to me because I know how I feel when our team gets treated that way. And it's just a way that we should, I think about our tech partners. Now, I think that part of this relational aspect as well too is, we've taken an approach for a long time that we do partner with specific tools and technologies, but we've been I think I used to use the term agnostic more often.
Yeah.
I like to use the word. I was just talking about this with Jess McCracken and Intuit, who's been honestly an outstanding partner of ours this past year. Is that I think Acuity, we're very fair. We're just we just strive to be a very fair partner. Of course, if we're working well with you and we think the solution is helping our team and our clients, we are going to do whatever we can to help make our partners successful. But we're also not going to get into we only bleed this color of GL system, or only do this way,
Yeah.
or that we only whoa, we get invited on this cool trip, so we'll never. I just think that there's no doubt about it. These everyone has to use some strategies and tactics to kind of draw, whether it's clients or people, accountants to them. But we try to do our best to be like, listen, we're going to find the best solution, and we're going to be a very fair firm.
Well, to be fair, even of the best of breed, if you pick any of the top 3, it's going to be a great solution. So I do see I understand firm owners that pick one, first of all, and pick one and go whole hog because it's easier to support. 100% easier to support. It's just never been in our DNA to do that. So I think a lot of our tech partners have struggled with that in the past, but they're getting used to us. We grow on people, I think sometimes. That's
true.
I think so, but I don't think being agnostic
is a fungus. People, we just start growing on them slowly.
Yeah. I don't think being agnostic is for everybody.
Right.
Because it does require iterations. It does require more comprehensive team training. That's still stuff
the key right there.
We're struggling with that.
I was just going to say what for us in our early years when we were smaller and we weren't working with such a big tech stack, for us, it was the thing that was always the most important was, can we we'll have multiple solutions in the same problem area, right? If we can cross-train our team effectively, if it wasn't too burdensome on the team and they could switch pretty easily, we're willing to do that. That was our first lens of it can't impair the team too much if the solutions are different. And you get to a point, and I think that's still a good lens for firm owners to consider, is if you don't feel, or if you get feedback from your team that having too many different solutions in one area is too cumbersome for them, then don't do it. Do not do it. I mean, step back and don't exhaust your team. That would be the cardinal sin. I would say stay away from it. If you can, great. It opens up more market share for you. That's how we looked at it. That's why we were from the get-go, QBO and Xero as GL platforms. We were able to test the cross-training across our teams to use both GLs. And we felt like that was a smart way to go after a larger addressable market. So if we knew we could increase our TAM, why wouldn't we do that? And if it wasn't much of a lift or tax on our team. But now back to the Accountex framework, you can't cross-train everybody all across that. That'd be a great TAM right there. You're talking every solution under the sun, but you're going to have a team that is going to completely throw a mutiny on you and walk out, because that's unrealistic for everyone to know all those solutions.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, those are some of the things. There's a lot of ways to think about partnerships. It's incredible. They're incredibly important to us at Acuity. And I think what we didn't even touch on here is, I think getting a chance to work with tech partners, as we always say, it's kind of scratches that itch of curiosity for us. Wow, we get to actually participate and understand the tools of our trade. In fact, you get to influence the tools of your trade, and I think that's one of the areas that are fun to consider when they invite you in, whether it's early stage, and you've seen this, Matthew, we called out some partners of ours, or even later stage, there are some who kind of let you in and say, hey, can you help us on our roadmap and how the tools look like? And I think if you if you're an accountant or a type of firm who enjoys that, and two of us are, our firm, we've kind of built to be a curious firm of we like people who like that. It can be a lot of fun too. It's fun to know that maybe you're having an impact even more broadly than hey, just, I need a tool that solves this problem. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not a technologist. I can't build this tool, but I can work with the builders of it, and they want to listen to me, and they actually want to help out, that's kind of a fun thing too. And I'd say behind the scenes too, beyond that, we called out a bunch of names here. There's probably 10 times more of the names of people we called out that have become really good friends of ours. There's some great people who work in this space too. So I just encourage folks, we'll talk more later about our specific tech stack and why we chose those solutions with Patty at some point. But in the meantime, I hope this is helpful for folks as you think about this crazy world of all the technologies that you run into at every conference. Maybe some ways to think about how you go forward with them to kind of create a better end solution for you and your customers. So with all that said, Matthew, let's rate some beers up from here from Drew and the Inflammo team. I've got mine pulled up first.
You always do.
I do. I try to make it a little bit easier. Matthew, can you see the scorecard? Can you see
I
it?
can this time.
Oh,
way to go, dude.
Untappd, Bearded Iris. This bad boy, a nice solid 4.0 and a good hazy, really nice kind of hazy IPA. I liked it a lot. Your beer, Matthew, was
Gerst Amber Ale. Gerst Amber Ale.
Yazoo. That's another really favorite. Yeah. Yazoo's a really well-known one.
So I was going to do 4.25, but they're going to lose a quarter point because their competitor sent this to us, Kenji. So drop it down to 4. Stop asking competitors to do this, to sponsor our podcast. That at some point we've got to make sure that we work at Acuity. So go to acuity.co if you're there.
You know how many? Only other accountants listening to this. You know how many other accountants have sponsored this? Let's just see.
Marissa, Amanda, like
Nicole and JW. We could go on and on.
Yeah.
We know who this podcast is really for. It's for our peeps. So
I know. Hey, I did want to say, if you want to see how we do kind of the flip on the partners, everybody has all the partners have you can be in our directory. We have acuity.co/partners. You can see how we flip that on them. So they feel like it's kind of also like we'll co-market with you. We'll do kind of stuff. It's also a good place to put your affiliate links on those. So if you want to check that out, you can see how we do that if that's helpful for you.
That's a very good point. We probably should have. I'll just show it real quick. I'll show it real quick. For anyone who's actually watching for this long, I can't imagine anybody is. Here's the page that Matthew mentioned, Acuity.co partners.
Yeah, just scroll down to the things and
you can find out here. They can come through and how to become a partner. And we come down here and show
the 16 that we feature.
Our different tech stack, right? A little bit more about them. We've got them bucketed and things here.
Yeah,
these
and
are the ones
Ramp's the newest one. So click through to Ramp, turn it over and click through. And each one of them has a landing page where we their marketing team, it connects the marketing team. So that's a kind of a subliminal thing you do with this. Like their marketing team has to talk to your marketing team to do this, or you just get connected into different places and stuff like that. So
yeah,
lots of cool things to do as you go through this, guys.
Yeah, so feel free to check that out. Matthew is instrumental in building that for us, helping build that for us. So reach out to us or him, take a look out there. If we can ever help you with it, let us know. But in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to drop some comments. It always makes us happy when we see any kind of comments or people.
Even snide remarks.
Yeah.
We'll take snide remarks. That's good.
That's
just
right.
Anything to keep us going on the recordings, guys. Come on.
Loved or hated, but never ignored. Please never ignored, right? So, well, cheers, man. Thanks for
cheers
chat today. Cheers to all of y'all out there. And we'll catch you next time here on Drink While You Think.